Welcome back to Make It Mondays, and this week I'm starting a new sweater with this yarn. So it is cotton, and I have a bunch of this, so if I don't use it all on this project, you will definitely be seeing it again later, hopefully quite a bit later. But it's going to be a sweater where the cast on edge is the center front and on both sides and all the way around the back, and mitered up towards the center back. So let me get everything flipped around and I'll show you how it worked up. So here is one of the corners of the jacket. I have done several rows of knitting to get to this point. And the miters are how the bottom front corners of the jacket are working. I have quote fancy stitch markers on both just so I can keep track of where I am. So this is a central double decrease. Going to slip. I'm going to slip the other two stitches as well, but that's just to change their orientation. Knit through those two and pass that first stitch over. In this case, I'm okay with the middle stitch being in the back. For other projects, it would be more appropriate for me on top. Then I'm going to keep working all the way to the end of the row. The next big thing is forming the arm's eyes. So I'll be back when it is time to work on that. So I am on the last row before the arm's eye, which means it is a bind off row for the first side, which is actually the left. So I'm going to slip the first stitch. It's what I've been doing all along. You'll see why I've been doing it in a couple more segments. Then knitting and casting off. In this case, it is actually important to do a knitted cast off, meaning that you're not, that the yarn is going with me all the way down. So that way I don't have to cut the yarn and restart. So I'm going to be binding off 8 inches worth of stitches, which in my case is 32. And then going all the way down to the other side, turning the work, doing the same step again on from the right side on the right. And then I will just be working in the center for 16 rows, continuing to do the miter. And so you can see that's what the miter looks like from the back. That's what it looks like from the front. And in general, this yarn has been knitting up really, really pretty. It's actually lighter than most of the cottons that I have made stuff with before. So I do mostly knit with cotton when it is clothing for me. I prefer it over acrylic when I can get away with it. But there are some projects that were designed in acrylic, and therefore it's a little harder to switch type of fiber. Or more importantly, the stretch factor, because cotton has no stretch. So I'm going to just keep going, and I will be back when it's time to cast back on for the other side of the arm's eye. So I have reached the end of the underarm portion of the body. So now it's time to cast on for the back side of the arm's eyes. I'm going to knit in, lift it onto the left-hand needle, knit into that stitch, lift it onto the left-hand needle, and I'm going to do that all the way until I've reached the 32 stitches that I casted off. And then I'm going to knit back along these 32, and then do the same thing on the other side. So I have both sides ready. The one different thing is that last stitch that I'm going to be casting on, it's not going to be casted on straight. It's going to actually be picked up from, focus where I need you to focus, on this selvage edge. So it will be picked up from here to close up that arm's eye. And I'll show you how that little bit works a little bit later on. Be back in a bit. So I'm coming up to the end of the row that connects on the shoulder. I do this so I don't have to sew that seam. If you don't mind sewing shoulder seams, you absolutely can do this unconnected at this point. So I've passed the last stitch, the right hand needle. I'm going to insert through the V's, so that last stitch on the previous side, yarn over, pull up a stitch, and pull it through or past the slip stitch over. So that's how it works on that side. On the other side, it's the same, just putting the seams on the other side of the fabric. So at this point, this is inside out at this moment, but I'm going to continue working until all of the stitches on this bottom edge are worked, and then they will be seamed up down the middle, and I'll be back to show you how that seam works. So it's time to join the upper back, which has this small seam, and it's joined with a modified Kitchener stitch. So I'm going to be going from the side of the work facing me to the side of the work away from me. And then on this side, the side of the work facing me to away from me. And then reversing that, but in the next stitch. So going back, so it's back to front, and then front to back, and then sliding those first two stitches off the needles and wiggling it down a little bit. Okay. And did that second part a little wrong, so I'm going to back that up, going from the side in front of me to the behind me, then back to front, and then front to back, back to front. Now part of this is so that I'm making a line of stitches that matches the garter stitch pattern that's already going. So that's why it looks a little different than normal Kitchener stitch. But I'm gonna do this all the way up. And then I'm gonna cut this a little bit shorter than what it is and go ahead and cast on for the sleeves. So I'll be back in just a second to show how that bit works. So here we are ready to pick up the sleeves. Now, if you've seen me do pickup stitches for sleeves before, this one is actually easier because every single slipped stitch or bound off stitch or casted on stitch is getting a new stitch. That's just how the ratio works. So inserting through, in this case, the bind off edge and pulling up a loop. In my patterns, this is pick up and knit. Some people do just call this picking up stitches. Technically, they can both be right as long as it is clearly written in the pattern that that is what they mean. I try to make it clear. Some of my older patterns need a little bit of a rewrite. But yeah, I'm just going to go all the way around. It's going to be picking up a total of 80 stitches because there's 36 on each side, and then there are 8 along the underarm. So I'll be back to show a little bit more once those are all casted on. So I did actually misspeak. It is a total of 72 because it was 32 stitches, 32 stitches, and 8 stitches. So now I'm going to purl around, which I haven't had to do up until now because everything's been knit, and then knit around and purl around. That's the basics of the sleeve. The reason I have the 2 sets of stitch markers, so I will be switching to the other stitch there, just so that the garter stitch seam is directly under my arm. But this is where the stitches are going to be decreasing. So I'm going to go a couple rows and then I'm going to decrease 2, a couple more rows, decrease 2, until I get down to 60, which will be a little bit more comfortable for a sleeve diameter on me. Not quite sure how long I'm going to make the sleeves right now. I guess the yarn will tell me. I'm not playing yarn chicken on this one. I have a boatload of this yarn left over, so you'll probably see it again eventually, just not right now. So that's not the concern. It's just, when do I really want to finish this, and do I really want to bring out another skein? This is only the second to do this entire project. So again, we will see how far I get. And I will be back when it's all the way, when it's most of the way complete, if not all the way. And here is the sweater all the way done, or except for the buttons, but all the way done for the video. So it is very short sleeve, but this was only 2 skeins of yarn. There is way more of this yarn, so it's probably going to come back. All the edges on the inside are just pick up and knit, so there's nothing weird in there. And it is 100% cotton, so it's nice and soft. So I'm going to tip the camera down just a little bit. So that's how it looks. There is enough of an overlap for the buttonholes that I put in to go across and button. And that is it for this week of Make It Mondays. If you made it this far, please consider dropping a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And you can always follow me on other social medias. I do post on Facebook and Instagram on a regular basis. If you want to support the channel a little bit, I do have a Patreon, and I also have a Ko-fi page, and all of the information is linked in the description down below. And I will see you next time on Make It Mondays. Bye!